Welcome to the War on Wellness. I am Penny, your host, also known as Plant Based Penny, and I'm excited because today we start our first installment of Heritage Fusion, and we're going to be talking about with my guest that will be coming up, and that is Hollee Freeman. And Dr. Hollee Freeman is a good friend of mine and a good friend of many of yours as well. And our topic is Heritage Fusion. We're going to be talking about our culture, our lifestyle, and our wellness, and the intersectionality of all three of those. And so I am excited about her, and I will tell you a little bit about her right before we bring her up. So I will introduce some, present to others. Dr. Freeman, she's an award-winning and nationally certified educator who's worked for 3 decades in K through 12 education, along with undergraduate and graduate levels all up and down the East Coast. And she's worked in graduate level and administration. She's also an author. She has books, and she's also a photographer. She takes some really great pictures, and a beekeeper. And one thing she didn't put on her bio is that she's also a world traveler. So I have to, she'll have to remind us where she just got back from. And she uses her creative and her professional endeavors to create space and cultivate learning for adults and for students. And so I know that anybody who knows Hollee loves Hollee, and I am absolutely happy to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Very nice.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm
Now,
glad to be here.
before I forget, where did you just get back? Didn't you travel somewhere?
Yeah, I just came back from Vieques, which is the island off the coast of Puerto Rico.
Ah, very nice, very
Very
nice. I love it. Now, did that have anything to do with your endeavors, or were you just taking in the sun?
nice. I went there to relax, and my friend Marcy and I were driving down a road, and I saw the apiary, a bee yard, and I was like,
Wow.
stop the car. And I ran down the street and took some pictures, and I got on. We like no internet happening. I'm like trying to. So I found the beekeeper, a young woman who takes care of the there's a farm. There are hives on the farm. So I said, please let me come. So she let me come to the apiary, and it was just amazing. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get back on an educational trip, maybe bring some folks with me, all that. So I'm excited about that. So it was just pleasure, but I ended up having an amazing time at a bee yard.
Hey, that's absolutely excellent, excellent. So I want to say hello to those who have joined us over on Facebook and on Instagram. So we're on Facebook, we're live there. We are on Instagram, and we are on YouTube as well. So welcome to everybody from there. Say hello, say hi, say welcome to our guest today. We're happy to have you. So, Holly, let's get right to it
Okay.
because we all want to know. We have not seen you on this broadcast, but you've been really busy. But first, because we're talking Heritage Fusion and our culture, our lifestyle, and our wellness, and how that all ties into each other, just want to give us a little background about yourself, and specifically, how you grew up. We're looking at you describe for us like the older generation of your family and where they're from and where they lived, and how they lived, the city dwellers, farm dwellers, or what they were.
This is apropos because we just had a homegoing service of the last great aunt of a generation. So Fanny Bell Roberts Richardson was the one of 13 siblings who grew up in Clover, Virginia, and she was 97. Her the brother that preceded her in death 2 weeks earlier was 102. And so we all went down to Clover, Red Clay, a population of 536, and we had a ball. Someone brought out the photo albums, and we were all just reminiscing about the great times we had in Clover, Virginia. And Clover is near South Boston, Virginia, Halifax, down that way. So my mother's side of the family grew up very small town, rural Clover, Virginia. Tobacco barns are still standing. The family cemetery back there in the woods, and I was really honored to have had that experience of having the experience of being down there when folks were alive and vibrant, but also having an opportunity to go down there now for such a sacred occasion. And there were many members of my family who want to continue the tradition of living down there, farming the land, and that sort of thing. So I'm excited to get into into some projects with my daughter and some cousins and my uncle. So that's my mother's side of the family. My father's side of the family was born and raised in Prince George County, Virginia, and they were farmers. So every Sunday, every weekend really, but every Sunday we would all go down to Prince George, Virginia, and my cousins and I used to work in the fields. We were playing in the fields, but we were picking string beans and picking watermelons and all that. And we had the big family dinners. My grandmother, Grandma Freeman, Marie Freeman, canned all her vegetables. She cooked on the big wood stove. The kids had a kid table. So both sides of my family are from rural agricultural communities, and I think that's where I get my love of being outside, farming, gardening, beekeeping, and all of that.
And so I think that sounds so great. Sounds like fresh air. Sounds like kids running around outside and not inside so much, not in front of a screen.
Yes.
And experiencing nature a lot now. And so do you think, or how do you think that experience when you were younger has influenced your relationship either with your lifestyle or with food now? How's that impacted you today, or has it impacted you today?
Yeah, so I was one of those children that knew where milk came from, knew how we got our food, all of that. And so that I have carried that with me. And so I do a lot of planting, food, and my goal really is to be able to sustain myself with food. Haven't done the meat thing yet. Like I don't have goats and cows and chickens and all that stuff, but that perhaps is a part of my future. But I grew up knowing where the food came from because I would go with my dad in the little truck and sell food to folks. And I saw my grandparents on the farm, and I instilled that in my own daughter, and she's an herbalist and knows a lot about plants. And so I think that kind of thing just gets in your DNA. And even if you try to run from it, I lived in New York City for a while, lived in Boston for a while, and I still had gardens there. I still enjoyed being out in nature. I still had a reverence to nature. So I think that folks who grow up in agricultural rural communities have that inside of them, and it will come out in some way. And it did for me. I tried. Let me add. I tried canning. I tried to do all. I cannot cook. I cannot cook, but I can can, grow vegetables. I can do all the things. I can do everything except.
That means we can barter. Okay. Yes. If you can can, I can eat.
I can can it, and then and we can figure it out. So I think when the food was being prepared, I was out in the outside playing and doing different things. But I can do everything up to the cooking part.
Right. And I remember you telling me before that your dad, I think it was, found some old tools, canning tools.
Oh my gosh.
And that I don't know if you use them now or if you're just displaying them, but
I use them. And so I use them to can the pots and the round kind of pieces that you put the mason jars in and put it into the water. And then we have old bread tins and skillets and all of that. And we have like seed disperser. So you kind of put the seed in a chute and you push the handle, the seed kind of comes out the end. So he would say that one person would make the hole and the other person would just go and put the seeds in the ground. And he has the old ox reins, and
wow.
Shed has all of the old things, and I love it. I love it.
So were there any other educators in your family?
My Aunt June was an educator, but that was because So my dad had two siblings, a brother and a sister. So this at that time, the sisters, the women, they didn't want the women to work on the farm. It was dangerous. And also, my dad and his brother had to walk from Petersburg, from Prince George, to school in Petersburg, and that was a long distance. And they don't, and the elders, the parents didn't want the girls to do that trip because it was dangerous. So she was sent north to DC to go to school, and she ended up being an educator in Port. She came back and went to Portsmouth to be an educator. Um, my sister is a teacher in Boston. My daughter is a teacher. She works with students at Martin Luther King Middle School, and she also works along with me at the Cultural Roots Homeschool Co-op. And so I just think it's interesting that you have siblings, and the girls do a different thing because they are girls, right? There were different expectations, different safety issues for girls than for boys. But my aunt ended up being a teacher.
Very good, very good. Yeah. We have some hellos coming in for you from Alicia.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hello, Alicia. Nice to see you.
Alicia is the director of the Cultural Roots Homeschool Co-op.
Very good. And we need to say, for those who may watch the replay or not from this area, that the co-op that she's referring to and the Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School that she referred to are in Richmond, Virginia.
They're both in Richmond, Virginia. The co-op is not school per se. It's where BIPOC students go for enrichment activities, I would say. So they have drumming, capoeira, literature studies, drumming, math, nature studies, indigenous studies. And then the parents take the responsibility for doing the more formal schooling with them. The fact that it's all BIPOC students, and it has a mission for really digging into issues affecting the African diaspora is really appealing to me. And one of my classes were talking about Syria and reading a book about the swimmer, Yusra Mardini, that's a refugee, and she was on the refugee team. So those kind of things we're doing that necessarily can't do at school. So that's it. Right. So, but my daughter works at MLK, which is a traditional Richmond public school, but they have a restoration garden. So she's helping students. She's a landscape architect. So she's helping students to design the garden and also to think about what they want in it. So it can be a place of peace, as well as a place where they can grow food and give to them.
I can imagine right now she's doing a lot of prep work.
Yes, she is. She's collecting all the things, and they're making their designs and everything.
Right. Getting ready for what, I'm trying to decide what it is that I'm going to plant this year, because I have these grandiose ideas of things I would love to do. I'm gonna ask those who are watching, what if you plant, or if you wish you planted, what would you plant now for this upcoming growing season? I think that I'm gonna do some beans. I'm gonna rotate that where I have my tomatoes, beefsteak tomatoes last year, and some more peppers, and of course all my herbs and whatever other spirit hits me for what I'm growing. Do you know what you're growing yet?
I'm doing everything you just mentioned, and I want to get a handle on loofah. I want to grow loofah. Every time I try, I do it too late in the season, and it doesn't get mature enough. But I really
want to dry out completely.
Yeah. So I really want to try a loofah this year. But all the herbs, I'm a beekeeper. And so my daughter, Danielle, who's an herbalist, like I mentioned, keeps me on my toes. She's like, when you get a sting, put this and this and this on it. So I have to make sure I have all the herbs in the garden, and then tomatoes and cucumbers and, all those string beans and all of that. That's what I'm working on. But loofah is my, come on, loofah. I want that to work this year.
I have to send you my pictures that I have of me ripping the loofah off, or the peeling off, and when I was living in Costa Rica, and it was just such a rewarding activity. So I never thought about growing it here in Zone 7.
Yes, you can grow it. It's hard, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah, it's a nice vine to have, and it has a great flower as well.
It does. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So you were living in the city. You went to the farm on the weekends.
Yes.
Then you moved to the city and started teaching. up north, as we call it.
Yes, up north. Yes.
And then you ended up back in the Richmond, Virginia general area.
Yes.
And so I know that you wrote some books.
Yes.
And if you would tell our attendees what books,
Okay.
what they were about, just give us a little idea of what those
All
might be.
right. So the first two books are in the Muddy Ballerina series. It's about three children that were 5 or 6 at the time, different races, different cultures coming together to work productively. And I just thought it was so interesting that kids at that age are usually so individualistic. And it was my daughter and her three friends who had birthdays around the same time, and they really cooperated on lots of things. I just found that so exciting, really, because again, at that age, kids don't usually cooperate in that way. So I wrote a book called Muddy Ballerinas. Then there's a sequel to the Muddy Ballerinas, and I'm going to work on a third Muddy Ballerinas. I have a book called Beekeeping Besties, an apiary adventure, which chronicles my first year as a beekeeper apprentice with Nakaya Ellis Chavis. So it's a part narrative, just what happens, all kind of stuff happens. That we keep losing the queen, she's dying, the hornets are coming, all kind of things are happening. So it's a narrative, but also woven within the narrative, there are facts about bees and beekeeping in that book. And I have a nature journal. So I love to be out in nature. So when I'm sitting under a tree and I'm thinking, well, ideas come to me, like, let me look at the clouds and let me take some deep breaths and let me do some imagining. So I have a nature journal that has a series of prompts in there for students and adults to be closer, to be one with nature, have a little bit more connectivity with nature. I have a book called City Bees that is about to come out, where some bees fly around the city, visiting all the monuments. Not the monuments. They're visiting all of the I don't know, all the places in Richmond. They go to Elegba, they go to the Well Collective, they go to the Capitol, they go to Maymont, they go to the Bojangles Museum. The bees go to the Black History Museum, and so you get a sense of the city by virtue of these bees having explorations. And then I'm working on another book about turtles from some research I did in Mexico, and then I'm working on another book about Richmond as it started to integrate when my great aunt was in her prime, when she was in her 20s. So I have a couple of things in the hopper, and I've also helped to write some curriculum for Maryland, DC for their Blacktastic February events. So I'm just kind of writing books. Just I'm writing the books I want to read. That is the main thing for me. Where are the gaps, and what's the information that I want to convey to folks? And those are the books that I'm writing. All nonfiction. All nonfiction.
That sounds great. Now, where can people find the books?
You can find them on my website, holleefreeman.com. You can also find them at the places I just mentioned. Elegba has them, the Well Collective, the Black History Museum, Maymont, like lots of places around the city have the books. Also Amazon, you can get the books on Amazon. And again, you can also get them directly from me, holleefreeman.com. It's on my website. Look for products and they're all there.
Did I get that right? We have holleefreeman.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. We have
Thank
that.
You for that.
And I also, let's see, we have one of the students' moms saying hello.
I see. Hi, Anika. Carter's in my class. She said, "Hi, Miss Penny." Carter's in my math class.
I'm sure Carter loves his teacher.
Carter is amazing. She like busted out. She's a great math student.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. All right. So I'm really curious. I want to get your perspective on and looking at African American history and the areas that you're involved in, beekeeping or literature or education. So how has our heritage in those areas informed or influenced African American participation in either beekeeping or in the education arena. If you
I'll talk
would
about
expound on that.
yeah, I'll talk about beekeeping, and then if you would like, I would can talk about other subjects as well. Um, so the way I really got into beekeeping was that I was about to write a book about Kaya, a black female farmer, because who sees a 30-year-old black female farmer these days? So I was going to write a book about her, and I noticed that she had beehives. And I asked to apprentice with her, and that's how I got into my love of beekeeping. One thing she said really struck me. She said, bees, the story goes, bees are the tears of Ra, the sun god Ra. And the legend has it that when the sun god cried, his tears fell to the earth as bees, as honeybees to pollinate the land. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And when she told me that, it resonated. Like I felt it in my DNA. So I started doing research and I found this whole African tradition about beekeeping. And then I found there was an ancient Indian and Chinese in China, right? So I started to research ancient traditions around beekeeping. And then we have Scotland and Ireland and England and all that, Germany, the Caucasus Mountains, all that. But I was really focused on the African diaspora around beekeeping. And that's what really got me into beekeeping. Further research reveals that only 3% of the beekeepers in the US are Black. 3%. An average beekeeper in the US is an older white male, 55 to 6 years old white male. Then there's white women and then Black people. I'm just going to group them all together because it's only 3% of us. So I decided in my as I started to learn more about beekeeping, I'm going into my 6th year of beekeeping now, that I wanted to um, help other BIPOC folks in particular, but not exclusively, to reconnect with what we know about the land. So much of beekeeping is not just about bees. It's not all about the bees. It's about the climate. What's the weather doing? What's the soil doing? Because you have to deal with the pests that are coming up from the soil, right? And so what flowers are blooming? And so there's so much around beekeeping that's about the bees, but it's also about all the other things. And those are the things that we as folks of color connect with. All folks, but folks of color connect with. And so I started a Black Beekeepers Coalition for people who wanted to get more information about bees and beekeeping. And some of those folks are now beekeepers. And one of them, Taylor, is my mentor, my mentee. She's my mentee. And she's going to spend 160 hours with me just learning more about beekeeping. So I'm so proud of that group because it went from 4 of us, me, Kaya, James, and Mr. C, to now 17 people. And of those 17, some of them are becoming beekeepers. And again, it's not just about the fun thing about raising bees. It's really about being more attuned to nature. What's happening outside is going to affect what's happening with the bees. I'm a beekeeper because I want to increase the population of honeybees because that population is dwindling. And honeybees pollinate about 85% of our food products. So if you want to have a great tomato, you need to have a bee somewhere around there, right? So if the bees are extinguished, we will not be able to eat mangoes and tomatoes and cucumbers and that sort of thing. And so for me, that goes hand in hand, like food production and bees, pollinators, go hand in hand. My dog is scratching at the door.
That's okay. We here.
I lock the door so he wouldn't like bother me, and he's like bothering me.
He can join the podcast if he wants to.
I'm so sorry. So for me, kind of knowing that we have this ancient history with bees and beekeeping, and now we only have 3% of us are beekeepers, led me on that quest. My new project, another project is that I'm interviewing beekeepers around the world. So I've interviewed a beekeeper in Zambia, some Mexican, I shouldn't say it like that, some beekeepers who have Mexican ancestry that are in California. I interviewed a guy in Rhode Island who's a fisheries guy that got into beekeeping, entomologist in Ohio. So in Vieques, I interviewed the beekeepers there. So I'm really trying to get a sense of how does beekeeping differ, like where, depending on where you are in the world. What are we dealing with? What are we dealing with in terms of the beekeeping community, but also for ourselves? What's hard? what's challenging, what's easy. Do you have a community? Do you not have a community? Where do you get information? So I'm trying to do that with this new project where I'm exploring beekeepers around the world. So that gives you kind of a sense of what's, at least my take on what's happening in the beekeeping world.
That is so fascinating. So there was there no Black beekeepers, I guess, organization, society, or they hadn't come together in the Virginia area that you
so in Virginia there are some little pockets, and on Facebook there's like the Black Beekeepers Club and all that, and people just kind of share ideas. What I wanted was to touch the people who wanted to learn more about bees and beekeeping and actually go to their hive. You come to my apiary. Let's talk about what it feels like to be the only Black person walking into a bee club meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a thing that nobody talks about. And that can turn you off when you're like trying to get information and people are like, I don't know, different. It's not bad or good, but different. That could make you turn away from this hobby. And so I wanted to actually touch people, like physically touch them and say, like, let's do this thing together. Let's learn together, so that then they can in turn mentor some other people. And again, I feel like the bees and the beekeeping goes hand in hand with the gardening and farming. They both need to happen together. And I made a film about beekeeping. I wrote the book about beekeeping. I have a webinar right now for non-beekeepers. So people who are just interested in beekeeping, I have a whole webinar that talks about the culture and history of bees, colony dynamics. There are some research projects that I have people do. So I'm really just trying to educate the population on the importance of bees and also help people find connection to nature through honeybees.
Yeah, and I want to encourage anybody else who may have a question before we wrap up, for Dr. Freeman to please ask the question. And you have another shout out coming from Kathy Williams. Hi, Holly, Patricia, and her daughter Kathy are tuning in. Hi to you both.
She's in the Black Beekeepers Coalition, and she ordered her first set of bees. She has her boxes set up. So we are so excited I am so excited to be able to work with Patricia with her beekeeping journey this season. So Patricia's on.
So someone's asking the question. I think you said 6 years.
I'm going into my 6-year beekeeping.
Right. How many times have you been stung? Someone wants to know.
Oh, I've been stung.
I guess I'm
gonna say 5 good times. I'm gonna say 5 good times. My dance teacher, Kevin Lamar Jones, I got stung one time, and I had a nerd put my picture on Facebook, and he was like, "Yeah, no, ma'am, you are allergic, and you need an EpiPen." And so I think I am more allergic than the normal person, but I'm not like deathly allergic. But I have been stung I'm gonna say 5 good times, and the stings do hurt, and they hurt for quite a while. Here's the thing, though. I told the students all the time, bees are not trying to sting you. It's like I make the mistake, right? Like I was unprotected or I was acting erratically. So one of the things about beekeeping is that you have to have a calm disposition. You have to be breathing well. You have to be efficient. You have to know what you're looking for. If I'm there and I'm upset about something, or I'm rushing, I'm bumbling around and I'm holding the frames all crazy, it's going to agitate the bees. And that's when you can get stung. There are folks who my beekeeping buddy, Mr. C, is so calm. Like now he just wears a plastic, latex gloves and a little veil. I had the whole suit on because, you see my disposition. I'm a little frenetic. He's calm. So he can kind of work the bees in a way that he doesn't have to wear all the stuff, all the suit and everything. So I would say that when I got stung, it was because I wasn't being careful.
It wasn't the bees' fault.
It's not and the bees die when they sting you, so they really don't want to sting you.
Oh, yeah. Well,
there is right. Here's the thing, though. It can also be the weather. So if you're inspecting your hive and it's the weather is coming in and you haven't paid attention to it, that could agitate the bees. if they've been, if they have mice or if there's some rodent kind of trying to bother them, that could agitate the bees. So you really have to be in tune to what's happening around you, and you have to be in tune to your own body.
Okay, so let's back up for the weather. So should we be mindful of being outside around bees in certain types of weather? Is that what you're saying?
So bees, if bees get wet, the water affects their wings. They won't be able to fly. So when they're wet, the bees will go. When it's raining, the bees will be inside their hive, inside their tree, all that. If it's raining, they're in there. If it's dark, bees don't fly at night because they use the sun for navigation. So if it's dark, bees are in their house, their colony, they're chilling. If there's a storm brewing and stuff is blowing around and you're near some bees, that they could be agitated about that. So just be mindful. A bee will fly. If a bee flies around you, what I tell everybody, just say, "Thank you for your service. I love you," and just brush the bee off. The bee is
Yeah.
not trying to sting you. But if you start and running all around, acting all frantic and all that stuff, you can imagine doing this with your air, making different like with
Waves.
different waves in the air and
Mhm.
stuff. That's gonna agitate anybody. And a bee thinks that you're attacking them. So if you see a bee, just be calm, calm, calm. The bee will fly. You look at it, see how beautiful it is. It will fly right on off.
The and so another question is that I can't figure out how to get up here is if are these the same bees that are in the ground for like if you cut grass
No,
or something like that?
those are ground bees. There are
Yeah.
ground bees, mason bees, carpenter bees, honey bees, bumblebees, sweat bees, green bees. There are 20,000 types of bees. I'm
Okay.
right now, I only know about honeybees.
Okay.
Um, some bees
Honeybees
are
are nice
solitary,
bees.
some bees are social. The honeybees are social bees. Um, I mean, if you're out in your yard with bare feet, and I encourage grounding because that's real. Just be mindful of where you're stepping. And again, a bee is not going to try to sting you unless it's agitated. So just be mindful.
Mhm. So let me ask you this. Um, Let me add this. I wanted to ask you what is going on. Let's see if I can go back to the beginning. What is going on in this photo?
All right. So there's Alicia, who we talked about earlier. There's me next to her. Her daughter, Kennedy. Is that Jordan or Kennedy? Alicia, tell me, because I can't tell in that picture. And then there's Mr. C, my beekeeping buddy. I think that's Jordan. And no, that's Kennedy. That's Kennedy. That's Jordan. That's one of Alicia's kids. I can't remember. That's so crazy. They all look pretty much similar. We are installing a beehive. That's Jordan. Okay, thank you. We are installing a beehive in at Pine Camp Community Center, Cultural and Community Center. You can tell by the netting on the hive. So I caught a swarm last year. I caught 8 swarms, which you might think is a badge of honor, but really for a beekeeper, that means I wasn't paying attention to what was happening around the hive. That I didn't catch the swarm behavior before they swarmed. So it's not an honor. It's not a badge of honor that I caught 8 swarms, but I caught 8 swarms. That in that box, it's called a nuke box, NUC. It's a smaller box. It has 5 frames in it. It's plastic. And so I have the swarm that I caught in that box, and we wrapped it up with the netting, and we're taking it to Pine Camp to install a hive at Pine Camp. So we have an educational hive at Pine Camp. So that's what's happening in that picture. And Jordan is one of my mentees as well. All right, in this picture, I provide apiary visits. So students, like children, adults, all the people can come to my apiary visits. I'll start to put the dates on my website soon on Saturdays, and don a bee suit. You get the little safety briefing, you don the bee suit, and we actually inspect the hives. And I tell folks, what we're looking for when we are at the apiary. And it's such a wonderful thing to see a bee up close in action. And you can get as close or as far as you need to, as far as your comfort level goes. But this is us having a apiary visit, looking at one of the frames. And in the frame, the yellow that you see is the capped honey. So when bees grab the nectar, they use some enzymes in their bodies to turn the nectar into honey. The honey has to be less than 18% moisture. And so the bees will flap their wings to get the moisture content down. And when it's down sufficiently, they cap it, which means that honey is ready for consumption for both bees and humans. So when people extract honey, they're extracting that capped honey.
Okay, so the yellow part kind of near the top.
Yes, that's the
wood
capped
frame.
honey.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the honey you see at the store is honey that was harvested after it was capped from the bees. Let me not say at the store, because I don't really know what's at the store, what's in the at the store honey. Please get your honey from a local beekeeper. There are so many of us. I don't extract that much honey, so I have very limited supply. But there are other beekeepers around here that have local honey, and also honey is medicinal, and lots of people use it for allergies. But also, it's a healthy food, really.
Right.
Bees are the only
Right.
insects that make and eat their own food. So I would just encourage you to get local honey, because we don't know what's in the store-bought honey.
Right, exactly. And I encourage anyone to read the ingredient labels, because it may start with sugar.
Yes.
As the first ingredient. So we're not
sugar,
trying to
water.
add-
Right. They're adding
Yeah,
all kind of color and all this stuff. There are so many
exactly.
different types of honey: orange blossom and black locust, and so there. Usually, people will say, "Oh, honey's sweet." Honey, just like wine has different tastes, or cheese have different tastes, honey has different tastes as well, different blends. And so, if you get some honey that you don't like as much, try a different kind of honey, because there's a wide variety of honey types. So find the one that that suits you.
I think that's great. And you mentioned earlier about allergies. So allergy season is coming up. For those who are challenged with seasonal allergies, especially when all the pollen starts flying. And so you want to definitely make sure you have honey. It is definitely medicinal, as Dr. Freeman says. And having local honey is going to help you overcome the local allergies.
Exactly.
So that's one of the keys. A lot of people say, well, I'm getting honey, but they're getting it from some
California, Tennessee, right? It's not going to help you.
In California or the West Coast, and you need to have, if you're in Virginia, you need to have Virginia honey, or wherever you're from, get the local honey. And that was a very good tip, to get it from a local bee master.
Right. Know where your honey comes from, just like you know where your vegetables come from, or you know where your you know where your meat comes from. You should know where your honey
buy local.
Buy local. Support your local people. Support local people.
Yeah.
And if you need a list of places to get local honey, just go to my website and just ask me. There's a contact me button, and I'll give you some names of some folks.
Wonderful. Excellent. And so Paul's saying, I need some honey for springtime allergies.
I know.
Hollee and I are going to barter.
We are going to barter.
Barter, so we can get some of that good old honey.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, what is like the natural color of honey? Is it supposed to be gold, or is it clear? Or
it can be any color. So this is, you might not be able to see. So this is springtime honey, and I don't. Look at me! Look at me, all prepared. Didn't even know. And this
what? Let me
honey. Spring, fall, and this is from my own garden. But if I were, let's take orange blossom, because I just had a conversation with Art about orange blossom honey. Okay, or lavender honey. If for honey to be called orange blossom honey, that means that, so bees can fly 3 to 5 miles. So that means that the beekeeper knows that within 3 to 5 miles, the majority of the plants are orange blossom. That's how they can put orange blossom on the label, or lavender. Like, all this land is a lavender field, lavender honey, right? Most honey that you consume is wildflower honey, because the bees just people don't have those masses of feels. Many people don't. So if you have orange blossom honey, it might look a little bit different in color to black locust, which is darker, or to clover honey, wildflower honey. So honeycomb. Oh, look at me right
Look
here.
at you.
Look at me. I
Got
just
all
went
of
to
it.
math class. Let me see if I can get it. Here are just
Yeah.
a few of the
Oh, yeah,
colors of
yeah.
honey.
Let me put you full screen. Let me take me
Okay.
out.
I just happen to have this in here too. So you can see like this. So at a local honey contest, these were all of the different color. This is not even all. This is just all that I put on this piece of paper. Look at, and even like right here, they might look the same to you, but if you see it in person, there are slight variations of color. That's because there are all these variations of plants. And also the climate has a lot to do with it, right? Because we get a good nectar flow, it's going to be different than if we don't have a good nectar flow. So yeah, so honey comes in different colors. So don't be afraid of the dark color. It just might mean it's fall, because in fall we have different things blooming. In spring, this might be from the maple trees, it might be from the dandelions, this might be from buckwheat, something like that. So yeah, honey comes in lots of different colors. And
And we want to encourage people to not kill the weeds in your yard. That we call them weeds. Dandelions are one, they're edible, and they're all well if you don't use pesticides. But
right.
the flowers that naturally grow, the native flowers that naturally grow in your yards are good for all the pollinators,
All the
and so
pollinators.
we want to keep those and let those grow, and also plant native flowers and
Absolutely.
plants in your yard, and definitely plant your own garden. Plant your own garden for the pollinators, plant your own garden for yourself,
Yep.
and that will help maybe increase your consumption of vegetables. And so it's plant-based penny. I have to encourage people
Right. Absolutely.
definitely eat their vegetables, and we want to have as natural of a landscape as possible. And what you were
Absolutely.
talking about earlier about your family and the kids playing outside, we want to
Yep.
go outside. We want to get
Yep.
some grounding in. We want to get some sunshine. We want to get some fresh air. And all of
Absolutely.
that is going to help us with our immune system as we approach this allergy season coming up. It's going to help us with the immune system as the next virus circulates around. All of this is going to be helpful for us. And so I really appreciate you,
Thank
Dr. Hollee
you.
Freeman, for being my first guest on this series, which is Heritage Fusion, our culture, our lifestyle, our wellness. And so it's all intertwined. And especially for February, which is Black History Month, there are a lot of things in our history, our individual histories and our collective history that inform who we are today. And so I want to remind everyone how to get in contact with you. So if you let us know where you are, either on social media or
Oh,
in other
oh,
places,
all
so
right.
people can
All
follow
right.
you and
So
be.
and I'm gonna add really, really quickly, in addition to everything you said, there's a whole mental health part of growing your own food and being in the garden and grounding and saying hello to the trees and saying hello to the bees and all of that. So we also want to protect our mental health. You can find me on my website, holleefreeman.com. I'm also on Facebook, Hollee Freeman, two E. I got a bunch of E's, two E's, two E's. I'm on Instagram as Hollee Ray Freeman. I don't know why I needed to be different with that. And on LinkedIn, I'm at Hollee Freeman. Yeah, so that's all the places. And I encourage you to watch my film, which is about two black women beekeepers and what our experiences are, what our struggles are. That film has been in 2 film festivals. So I encourage you to watch that. And just you don't have to be in love with bees. It could be dragonflies, it could be snow leopards, it could be turtles, it could be the wind. I don't really care. What I care about is that you take an active interest in that thing and try to help other people see the value in it, the health value, the mental health value, all of that. I don't want people to think I'm pushing bees because I just happen to like bees, but I love turtles also. And I love dragonflies too, and birds and all that stuff. So find the thing that you love and go for it and bring some other people along with you.
I think that's great and great advice as well. And so, thank you also
Thank
to
you.
Michelle Clark for joining us. Also, and I wanted to let everyone know that the next broadcast is next Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. The War on Wellness, where we'll have our second guest and drum roll. So actually next week is February 14th.
Yeah,
That
yes.
is, and a lot of people celebrate Valentine's Day. So my gift from my husband is that he is going to join me on the live broadcast, and we're going to talk about our heritage and how we grew up and how it informs who we are today in our culture, our lifestyle, and our wellness. And
I love
so that is our treat for our
that.
listeners and those who are watching. So next week you'll catch Paul and Penny, and we'll be at 6 o'clock p.m. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Freeman. Anything
you.
else you wanted to say that you didn't get to say
Thank
before
you for
we?
having me. I love talking to you.
Yeah, and we said we're going to get together, and we definitely will.
We
Definitely
will. We
do
will.
that. So stick around, Holly, and I'm going
Okay.
to end with my outro
Okay.
for my guests and those who are watching. And we thank you
Thank
very
y'all.
much.